Apologies, we are in our third session, wherein we were speaking rather intensely on possible aspects, prospects in the COVID-19 era in the realm of merger and acquisition. Our speaker for today, Mr. Bhumesh Verma. Sir, you are on mute. Yes.
Okay. Great. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So, when we look at these challenges, what is the way ahead? I think going virtual will be very important going forward. Timelines will have to accommodate any disturbances on part of closures or lockdowns or unavailability of concerned people and so on and so forth. Approach will have to be very different from what it has been so far. Critical issues will have to be identified, particularly force majeure and so on, as we discussed earlier. And we'll have to customize indemnities, reps, and warranties pertaining to a particular transaction, looking at the impact of COVID 19 on a particular target, the promoters, and the ecosystem for that particular industry, and so on and so forth. The pricing, I guess, will have to be adjustable to how the industry or that particular target operates post COVID-19. So maybe you may have to withhold part of the consideration, as maybe Samir can explain later while we conclude the session, as to we'll need to find some ways wherein I cover myself up if the target does not perform as expected in as we are expecting today. Consideration may be in non-cash form in terms of share swap and so on and so forth, if there are any liquidity issues, and more tax efficient models, availing of some benefits, some rebates, and so on and so forth. Maybe we'll need to examine these benefits given by government more, particularly with MSME definition being revised and so on and so forth. So I think the deal makers will have to develop more tax efficient models as well. And yeah, there have to be some more FDI reforms. So to say, the government has closed down, it has ring fenced the Indian economy from some opportunistic takeovers, if being contemplated by our neighboring countries to take advantage of the prevailing economic situation. At the same time, the government is pushing Make in India so that we can attract not only I would say domestic manufacturing, but even foreign multinationals operating in China and elsewhere. They should be welcomed in India to manufacture here. I mean, these two policies, FDI welcome and Make in India, have to work in sync to make it a good package for foreign investors. Infrastructure, as Naveen ji explained very well, we need trillions of dollars of investment in the sector, and we need to push industries with a focus on job creation. Because of this pandemic, we have seen unprecedented levels of underemployment and unemployment. I guess I was reading a report a couple of days back, about 12 crore people have not made a single rupee in last 2 months in India. They have been rendered completely jobless. The government will have to adopt a very investor friendly and business friendly approach, like welfare and business will have to go hand in hand. As we have, like, we cannot prioritize lives or economy. There has been a debate, what is more important, saving lives by lockdown or opening up economy for so that people can make money and live their lives. So there has to be a balance. You should not always think of squeezing businessmen to give money for welfare. If businesses are doing well, they are facilitated, they can give jobs. So government needs to adopt this approach. They will give jobs and the economy will do good. everyone will have money in their pocket. Money need not be channelized through government only. Business can also channelize this money into people's pocket if we can create good job opportunities. Our employment laws are still archaic. So many efforts on part of the government have been bulldozed by so many vested interests. But again, as we are moving towards an investor friendly or business friendly ecosystem, maybe it has to be a bit employer friendly also. The rights, I guess, the respective rights of employers and employees need to be balanced. A lot of new job opportunities may emerge in informal sector or the gig economy, not very formally, proper appointment, employer employee relationship, and so on and so forth. And a lot of self employment needs to be promoted, I guess. So these are some of the aspects which I had in mind, and there have been invaluable suggestions and inputs by Naveen, Jaideep, Samir. I mean, if you have, I think Pradeep ji is also here in our discussion. Pradeep ji, what is your take on the issues that we have deliberated in today's session?
Pradeep ji is there.
I think he's there. Otherwise, I mean, if someone who's not got a chance to speak so far, maybe you can contribute to this discussion, or if you have any questions.
Sunil is there. Pooja is there. Preeti madam is also there.
If nobody says, I will speak something.
Sure, please.
See, just adding to what Samir was saying, when we did, I had the opportunity of participating as a team member of a disinvestment project, which was handled by Feedback Infra for this Ashoka chain, this Indian, this
Right.
Indian Tourism Corporation, ITDC. So which included
ITDC.
Bhopal and other. So what we did was, when we were projecting to the client, we were actually going by book value, which is like we gave three approaches basically: asset-based approach, discounted cash flows, and redevelopment approach. So in the asset-based, it was a book value or a replacement value, and in the discounted cash flows, it was like based on historical performance, or it was based on future mirroring of the market standard performance. And it was the fifth approach was redevelopment approach itself. Like if you need to start from the scratch, given the approvals required, timelines required, what will be the cost of that? And then on this one slider, we will give those 5 valuation, and based on that, leave it to the client to see. That is what mostly is done by even the buy side also. Like this was ours was a sell side advisory. For the buy side advisory, their team also does the same thing, because I have done the buy side advisory also. We do the same thing from the buyer's perspective. And then the board teams, like if it is a tender, you participate in the pre-bid conferences, or if it is one-to-one, then you sit across the table and see on what basis all these valuations have come. And based on those pessimistic, optimistic, and realistic performance levels and other things, we do this valuation part.
Okay.
I want to
Pooja,
add over here. Yeah, please.
No, I was just asking whether Pooja would like to speak. I think she is there or not, I don't know. Please carry on, sir. Samir, sir.
Because generally people say I talk a lot, so I generally have now become accustomed to listening more. I'm trying to train my mind to becoming a good listener now and speak less. But wo marketing karte na, I have become too much of a talkative person. But anyway, what Naveen sir was saying is correct. But what happens is, if I adopt the asset-based approach and the income-based approach, we were doing a similar case of a 5-star hotel in Delhi. Now from the asset-based approach, the value which came was 1500 CR. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, Samir, you are audible.
And when we took the DCF, the operating cash flow was only 70 CR. That means that hotel was only earning 5 to 6% on the fair value of the assets employed. So if I did a valuation on the discounted cash flow, the value was not even coming to say 600, 700 CR. Now the strategic point which comes over here is I have got two options. Whether I should choose 1500 CR, which is the fair value of all the assets, that is plant, machinery, land and building, or should I go by the value which is coming from future cash flow? Now in valuation, there is a concept known as is where is, existing use. So if I have to continue the hotel as a hotel, the person who is going to buy the hotel, why will he pay 1500 CR if he will only get 70 CR in return every year? He is better off putting the money in risk-free bonds. So finally, what was more relevant value in this case was the value derived from the cash flow if I have to continue the project as a hotel. On the other hand, if there is no legal restriction and I can dismantle the hotel and sell the land, building and plant and machinery separately, then 1500 CR is a very good value.
Yeah,
So
Samir
again,
very rightly said.
that depends on the intended use in future.
Yeah, you are right. Just to supplement what you said, when we did the valuation for ITDC Bhopal, the discounted cash flow valuation was 5.2 crores only,
Yes.
and book value was not even 1 crore, because book value is based on losses and other things, right? But the redevelopment cost of the project was 108 crores. That is where the dilemma comes, because if you recall all these factories in all these textile mills in Andheri. See, Andheri used to be a textile hub, right? And look at it, what it is now. But people actually saw more value. For example, if I say Centaur Delhi, if Centaur Delhi was to be disinvested, you can pay any amount of money to buy that Centaur hotel land, because you can sell it for any amount of money. Why wouldn't I sell it for 5.2 crores now? There are pulls and pressure both sides as to but what you said was absolutely right. The whole thing comes down to what is the sellability of the land and building involved. If it is sellable as it is, then it has to be like redevelopment approach. Otherwise, based on the cash flows, if land and building has no alternate value.
I mean, coming back to the same question, today what is happening, it is going to test the fundamentals not only of the company, but also of the valuer. Because if a valuer has learned his job by only applying formulas, he will make mistakes.
Yeah,
But
Naveen, I think Pooja wants to say something.
Yes, please.
Yes, Pooja. You're not audible, Pooja.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, very much.
Okay. So, Samir, my question is on valuation. In a going concern concept, that is a profit-making company, we apply a DCF approach. Now, in this COVID scenario, wherein we have already done audited financials, submissions are only till December 19, maximum of the companies, and we look at the profitability as on December 19. Hello?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm listening.
Okay. If the audited financials are of December 19 and we put the DCF approach, the valuation of the shares which come out are pretty high. Okay. And actually the promoters are not accepting such high valuations in this COVID scenario. They say that the projections which they have given looking into the prospect of the forthcoming 5 years. But when we apply the DCF, we have to look at the financials of December 19, and we take the financials which were submitted to us in March 20 or maximum April 20. And we apply the going concern concept and the DCF model. So, at this point of time, what is the right approach, or what is the right model of valuation to arrive so as to arrive at the correct valuation? Because, in a lot of cases, practically I've seen that the exchange ratios are not coming out to be accurate. Either they are not acceptable by the promoters or by the registered valuers.
Yeah, okay. Good question. See, first of all, just make it fast forward, say you come to March or April. So at least you have the visibility till of, say, of the conditions which were existing as on 31st March 2020, as on 15th April 2020.
No, but 31st March accounts are not audited because
no, that is okay. No, just a sec. You will have to, assuming that you are not the account preparer and you are a valuer, you'll have to do a brainstorming session with the promoters and first test whether this company is going to remain as a going concern or not. So we have to first forget what happened in the past, because this 3 months, 4 months have been so horrible that probably, as Sir was saying, for startups and MSMEs, a lot of them might sink in 3-4 months. So you have to first test whether the going concern is going to be there or not.
It is going to be there. The profit is touching 500 crores. So, of course, it's going to fall by, let's say, minus 50%. But the company is going to be a going concern and for sure profitable.
Now, second, assuming that you're saying that it is going to be a going concern, you have already tested that.
Right.
Then moving ahead, let us take it 1 year as it is. So there is a horizon period which consists typically of 5 years. And 5 years is the explicit period जिसका आपके पास cash flows मिलते हैं from the promoter.
Right.
The horizon period can be 3 years forecast or 5 years. Typically, in most industries, it is 5 years. Now you have to break these cash flows year by year. And probably the impact of COVID would be much more in year 1. And things would probably ease out by year 2 or year 3. And probably be back to normal by year 5. Now the situation is there will be a lot of subjectivity on what is going to be the cash flow, operating cash flow for year 1 and 2. Do not take one cash flow. Please assign probabilities.
Okay.
So you have to convince the promoter that, sir, this absolute cash flows will not work now. It will be subject to a lot of questioning. Please assign 3 or 4 scenarios. So you will have a pessimistic, most optimistic, most likely. And then if you have done you understand statistics.
Right.
So you have this expected value calculation, which is derived on probability into the value, probability into the corresponding cash flow. And then you get the expected value for year 1. Now, mind you, Pooja, for year 1, the discounting factor also could be different, very high.
Right. Yeah.
Year 2, year 3, when things become better, you can still continue with the probability, but have a lower discounting factor.
Right.
Year 5 onwards, it is back to what you were doing earlier.
Okay.
That way.
Great. Very nicely answered, Sameer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Right. It was very enriching for all of us. So, so I'll open the floor to anybody else, any other members, viewers who are willing to ask any further question on the topic, on the related topic. I believe we had a few on the previous session, but I don't think for some reason, they've been able to join in. And if there is no other question,
I have one. I will suggest one thing. I will send to Sir. There's one book of CFA, 100 pages. So if anybody is interested in learning some nuances of valuation, please go through that CFA book. When I cleared my valuation exam, it was very handy. It will be it's very user friendly. You will like it.
You should read my book also.
Yeah, please, sir. Please.
Sir, your books are the benchmark, sir.
प्रदीप जी, आप हैं तो कुछ बोलिए. I can see you. कोई लॉगिन
Yes.
करके गायब तो नहीं हो गए?
He's a very avid listener, a very senior member of our group.
No, I'll be on the listening side today.
I see some faculty member as well from an NLU, Hiral Mehta, I guess. Hiral, would you like to contribute something to the discussion?
I'll just assist the person. I'll unmute that person. So, I don't think any questions is left to be asked. With that note, and on behalf of all the viewers, and of course on behalf of the corporate legal, thank you so much, sir. It has been enriching. Of course, it's a privilege to have you. You having to squeeze out some time, a significant amount of time now, for indulging into this very critical topic, and of course a necessity in today's pandemic times, because we'll be seeing a lot of other government resolutions, policies, amendments, changes coming in a desperate attempt to aid, assist, and endeavor to continue the businesses, the small scale businesses and the other corporate entities to continue the businesses in today's pandemic times. Thank you so much, sir. Of course, we'll request you for another session on many on the other topics that we and the other viewers would like to have you on board and speaking on those topics. Till then, thank you so much for coming today. And thank you all viewers. This is the Corporate Legal. Please view us on all our social media platforms. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks all.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.